Tales from the Tap. My name is Frankie, and this is my co-host,
Stan the Man.
and we are excited to talk to you about the Pro Tour that just happened and some of our predictions with Foundations. But before we do, Stan, the Modern RCQ season is almost done, and I played...
Finally.
Yes, and finally is how I feel, because I think I played a total of 4, didn't really do a ton of prep ahead of time. It was like I was working on other
Mentioning
Magic.
the prep thing is so funny because I remember Julian came in to play Modern, which Julian never does, for those that know him.
Yeah.
Not a huge fan of Modern, even though he won my RCQ. Spoilers. I don't know if you guys actually heard that already. But he was like, what's Frank doing? I thought he wasn't here today. I'm like, he's playing Star Wars. He's like, Star Wars? Because we do Star Wars and Modern on Thursday nights. He's like, this guy doesn't want to win an RCQ. I'm like, listen, man, we're busy. He's unwinding. But yeah.
Well, and on top of it, I wanted to make sure that I locked our season.
Oh, true.
For Star Wars.
You won the Star Wars playmat.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to be like, who's going to have the first Star Wars playmat at Boar's Hat? It will be me.
True. He locked it in. It's going to be Porkins for those that are Star Wars fans. Episode 4. But yeah, so RCQ's almost over for Modern. Format was kind of like in a really rough place. It almost feels like it's like 2 different RCQ seasons because, like,
yes,
believe it or not, at one point Nadu was legal during this RCQ season.
And I think that was my first 2. Was like during Nadu time.
Yeah. And the bigger ones too, because like in the first month of RCQs, that's when the most attendance happens. And yeah, people were out, and luckily for ours, we only had 1 Nadu player, but it was just a rough time. Nadu was just such a menace for the format. Horrendous card. Modern Horizons sets aside, like the card is just terrible, and we're glad it's gone. Modern looks a lot better now, but you know, people are going to complain about where it's at with the One Ring and energy, etc. That's not what we're here for today, though, so we don't have to worry about it. And the Modern season's over. We're moving on to brighter pastures with Standard and all the Standard events.
I cannot wait. I can't wait for Standard, because so these last 2 RCQs that I did, I was using our buddy Jabor, who we had on the last episode. I was using his 2 lists for Jeskai. He calls it Rogren control, which I think is so funny.
It's Rogren.
Yeah, but the lists were good, and I actually, like, despite not having a lot of prep, like, felt really good going in. Like, I probably did like 6 games on MTGO
Well, that's
total.
why I kept telling you to play George's list, because for those that don't know, George was our guest last episode, and he is the creator of FlexLab, but he's also a very good control player. I told Frank, you should play this guy's list because it's very strong, and he's got it pretty updated. Him and Garrick have been kind of crushing with it. The Supreme Verdicts in the main board, and then Prismatic Endings, etc. But you already play Control, and you play Control in Pioneer, you played it in Standard. So I was like, this is like right up your alley, even with minimal practice. Even playing into like Modern, you should be fine with this list. That's why I also told Christian, shout outs to one of our patrons, to play it as well. And he's also been doing pretty well with it in Nebraska. So yeah, it's a very cool deck, honestly. And Supreme Verdict is a great answer to like everybody countering everything, and you have to get rid of Oculus now, and frogs, and fly traps, and all the creatures from Boros Energy and everything.
Yeah, it felt really good, and I felt like competitive against the people I was playing against in the room. It didn't feel like I made, outside of yesterday, I made a ton of misplays. I had 2 misplays specifically that I saw that I was like, oh, that was bad. But the thing that made me mad was that I just had such weird decks that I played against.
Oh, sure.
For the 2 weekends. Like, I played against Titan twice,
Yeah.
Jeskai Dressdown, Ninjas. FOMO Hollow one, Eldrazi aggro, and then green-red Eldrazi.
Yeah.
And like both Eldrazi decks yesterday that I faced were running like mainboard Cavernous Souls, and I was like, okay, like cool. So it just felt like, despite the fact that I think I picked a strong deck and like a deck that I understood pretty well, it was like I'm just playing into weird jank that like didn't help because I don't know Modern super well.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. You have to like really know Modern to play against like the tier 2 decks, or like the not as popular tier 1 decks. Like Gruel, Eldrazi, etc.
Yeah, I mean, the aggro Eldrazi list, the guy told me, he's like, yeah, I haven't updated this since the summer. I was like, cool. So I absolutely have no idea what's going to happen
Well,
here.
they got the labyrinths and probably the K commands and all the important stuff, so.
It was just like the Eldrazi command, and then it was playing the 2/3 that whenever you cast a colorless spell, it just like shoots you.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's like, cool, like swing with a dude, swing with line breaker, play that guy, Kate, like Kozilek's
So it
command.
wasn't even like the Through the Breach deck. It was like actually the Eldrazi deck, which is
Yeah.
funny because it's really good in Legacy.
Yeah, I was like, well, okay, yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
With that being said, we're going to jump into some quick housekeeping before we talk about the rest of the episode, which is going to be covering. I'm going to give you guys a breakdown of what happened at the World Championships this past weekend. We're actually recording Monday night instead of Sunday night, part of which was because we were both busy, but also because we wanted to get the entire World Championship over with and any like possible spoilers from today.
New spoilers did come in too.
Yeah, we did get some new spoilers for Foundations, and we are gonna talk about that. But even though there might not be any more good, cool spoilers, since a lot of the mythics and rares have already been spoiled, we only have spoilers up until 10/28. Today's the 28th, and it's Monday night, so we might miss some really cool spoilers the rest of the week that could actually change our thoughts and opinions on what we look forward to with Standard after Foundations. But Bloomburrow and Duskmourn, honestly, spoiler, are just so strong, and like the format is so centered around those two sets right now, even with how big Standard is. Excuse me. We more or less kind of agree that Foundations is a good building block for like a set, and it's going to have a lot of cards that go in all these decks. A lot of really strong cards, just nothing necessarily that's going to force you to build around, at least that we've seen up front. There might be some big winners, though. We'll get to that at the end of the episode. For now, though, some housekeeping. As always, shout outs to our Patreons that support us every week, keeping the lights on. We really appreciate you guys supporting us from the beginning, and those who are new, as always, really appreciate you guys. The best way you can support the show, if you want to help us out, is joining our Patreon. There's multiple tiers, different stuff we can help you guys out with, sideboard guides, coaching, etc. If you aren't already using FlexSlot for the cyber guides, like we said, definitely check it out. We're going to start using those as well ourselves for whenever we go to tournaments with our deck list. We'll have our sideboard guides connected to a FlexSlot, and you'll gain access to them through our Patreon. And then the Discord is free access if you want to join, but there are certain channels in there that are perks for specifically for patrons, like getting your decks looked at. If you want to send us your deck, get a cyber guide, get some assistance with your deck, get some coaching sessions, etc. We're always happy to help out with that kind of stuff. And for those that already have them, use your perks. Some of our friends will just sub to the Patreon, and then they won't always use their perks. So we'll kind of use them in some jank way where we're hanging out at a call and watching each other play some Magic, which we're always happy to do that as well. If you guys just want to watch us play your deck, or if you want us to play one of your lists on stream as well. Finally, with Frank having internet access at his new house, we can actually stream a bit more. So that's always nice.
And speaking of like Patreon, and something that I'm actually planning to do for this week is, so the Energy Chicago is happening this weekend.
True.
And I'm going to be planning to put up onto our Patreon a sideboard guide for Green-White Taxes, which is the deck I'm planning to play for the 5K in the Pioneer.
Yeah, he's been grinding a lot of Pioneer, especially Green-White Taxes specifically. Because you were playing Green-White Taxes, but you were also playing, what was it prior? The Enigmatic Overlords from, from the RC. So Frank did day 2 the RC with Enigmatic, for those that didn't see that episode of the podcast. And then quickly switched over to Green-White Cocoa Taxes, which is a really honestly scary deck. Aven Interrupter is just insane. That card is so gross.
Well, and even Interrupter with like the other text pieces, like if you have a Thalia out, like that non-creature spell that is now plotted costs an additional 1 because of Thalia attacks too. So it's like they're paying twice the mana for it. And there's not anything wrong with Enigmatic Fires. I just wanted to like do something new, and so like that's kind of how I switched over.
For sure. And it's always good to diversify. But anyways, if you want to follow us anywhere else, we are on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, Tales from the Tap. And then you can also follow us on every other platform where we post our videos. YouTube's our main one. If you want to subscribe, if you haven't, you're watching on YouTube, you want to like, comment, subscribe, we really appreciate that. It definitely helps us out in the algorithm. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any other streaming platform when it comes to podcasts. But with that being said, let's jump into this recap because it's going to be kind of long. I'm going to try to blitz through it as fast as I can while being concise so you guys can get a good understanding. And then if we cover any cards, because we're not going to have as much editing anymore, I'm going to have Frank read off what some of these cards do for those that are just listening and not actually watching. Or for those that are driving and don't have time to look up cards, you shouldn't be looking up cards while you're driving, Julian.
I'm also guilty of that, like really bad. I'm always checking goldfish while I'm driving.
Yeah, Frank will be driving home, and I'll be on Discord here at the store, and then he'll be like, "Oh, I just ordered this card on your website." I'm like, "Sir, you are driving home." But anyways, World Championships. Oh man, honestly, gotta say, a really awesome event. We were playing Legacy here this weekend, and my friends asked me to put it on the TV. And
Oh yes.
I was legit just like enthralled, just watching every game. Like, oh man, this is like such good standard gameplay. Like really just top level stuff you'll never see on Arena, unfortunately. Even like at Mythic sometimes. Just like really, really good gameplay. And World Championships is like honestly one of the few times you get like the really good quality where like you get to see all the cards in their hand. They actually have like the best commentators, just really good stuff going on. And Saturday was pretty chill because we were just playing like Legacy and Pokemon and stuff. So I'm watching these games. I'm like, man, oh my gosh. Like watching every game, like Kai Buddha, Seth Manfield, a lot of their matches that were like in the final rounds towards qualifying for top 8. I was like, incredible. With that being said, Seth Manfield, one of our favorite players from the podcast, if you guys know, definitely one of my favorites. He was just on a tear with the Golgari ramp deck, which is like, there was 2 Golgari decks that were really running around. The normal mid-range version that we all know about with this like Glissa, Go for the Throats, grinding value that way. And then a really popular new archetype since the Overlords have come out is Golgari Ramp, which plays up the Beanstalk and Overlords and a lot more like 5+ drop spells. But they can support that because it gives them card draw with the Beanstalk, and the fact that Overlord of the Hauntwoods ramps you so efficiently. It is just a really, really good deck. And I think Seth Manfield was like the only X1 player by the end of it. He was like 10 or 11 and 1, and then it was like triple buy to top 8. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
He was crushing.
Yeah, I just love this list. Like the idea of just, right, it's kind of what Enigmatic was, where you go Beans into Hauntwoods.
Yeah.
And like then being like, I can deadly cover up on 4. And
Yes.
I'm drawing cards in addition to like, it's
Such a good deck,
good.
and Seth Manfield being the pilot just made the deck look very good. The whole time I was like, oh wow, he's like the only player in his bracket. I was thinking he was going to just win the event, and I was really rooting for him because huge, like we said, huge Seth Manfield fans.
Yeah.
Not that we didn't like the other people in top 8. Honestly, the top 8, I mean, the whole world was stacked, but top 8 was like very stacked, which was the rest of the event. So the rest of top 8 was Kai Buddha, which let me just say, super happy he got his top 8.
I was also so
What a
happy to see
legend.
that. I was like, yes, man.
Like he just killed this guy was like, I mean, we did the episode where we talked about the Player of the Year award being named after him now, and how he's a legend of the game who might not be with us very much longer because of his cancer, and just like a legendary player. And then the fact that he got to like top 8 in other worlds on the way out, it's insane, you know?
Yeah, and on top of it, so I played his list tonight.
Yeah.
Like here at our standard and went 2-1, and it felt really good. But he did something that Julian and I had talked about like last week.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about just like, okay, what do we think is going to happen in standard? And he's playing Unstoppable Slasher as like, just like as a 3-of, just
Yeah.
because it kind of feels like Glissa but scarier. Like
Yes.
it's such a fast clock, but it also blocks like a champion because it can die and come back.
Right.
And so when I saw that in that list, I was like, this is exactly what we were talking about, like playing this card for. And tonight I felt the power of like, oh, I was
Yeah.
playing into someone who's playing like Boros Mice, and I was like, I got a Slasher out, swing, come.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Slasher is very, because like Glissa, you're like, oh, I'll take a hit. Slasher, you're like, absolutely, he is never coming in. I will sacrifice my board.
Right.
But yeah, so Kai Buddha, Demir mid-range, lost to Seth in the quarterfinals, 3-1. And then I'm going to butcher some of these names because I didn't get to hear how they're pronounced, but Ha Fam, I believe it is. Demir Demons lost to Javier in a mirror match in the quarterfinals, 3-1. Excuse me. Javier Dominguez, spoilers, was the winner with Demir Demons. Quinn Tonol was playing Red Deck Wins, and I think he was actually the only Red Deck Wins player of everybody at Worlds. So he got the top 8, being the only Red Deck Wins player. Lost to Marcio in the semifinals, 3-2. Marcio Calvajo, he played Golgari mid-range and lost to Javi in the finals in a 3-0 sweep. And then Yoshihiko Ikawa, Gruel Prowess, lost to Marcio in the quarterfinals, 3-2. So Gruul Polaris, Gruul mid-range, red deck wins, 3 Dimir decks, and then Golgari ramp. So pretty like favored towards like Dimir and Golgari. Like black, I think I posted the other day on Discord. I was like, white was like very clearly the best color in the format with Bloomburrow. And then Duskmorn comes out, and it's like white not only is not the best color, it got like downgraded.
Yeah.
Black is now the best color, it feels like. And it doesn't necessarily feel very close. Notably, there was no Azorius in the top 8, but there was a lot of Azorius at the tournament. It was also a very strong contender, a very strong deck.
Yeah, and what's so funny is I know that you, like, I think somewhere in here have about caretakers.
Yeah.
And I remember getting off caretakers because just some of the decks I was playing into, not here, but like online, like I played a little bit of standard on Moto and like just felt like I was starting to get beat down. Like right after Duskmorn was happening, I was like, all this value, like I just can't.
Yeah, everything is so efficient now in caretakers. We'll talk about it a little bit more. Actually, we're going to get into it pretty soon, so I guess I'll skip that point for now. But I thought it was so ironic that Javier won, considering there was a post going around from Mauro on his Tumblr where he was like, here's some spoilers for Cards and Foundations. And for those who know Mauro, they know he does this every set. I always find these posts, honestly, still be so boring. It's like, card that does this. Just like, whatever, man. Just tell me the card or not, you know? And everybody's like, what if it's this? Like, so much cope going around. Like, it's going to be Snapcaster. It's going to be... So one of his lines was a World Championship card, or a World Championship player card, rather, not the strongest one. And so everybody's like, oh, it's not Dark Confidant. And then I'm looking at the list of the World Championship cards, and I'm like, is Dark Confidant the strongest card on this list? Because like Fervent Champion's on this list, and that card is cracked. So Fervent Champion ended up winning the tournament. Shout outs to him. For those that don't know, that was the Javier Dominguez card, and now he gets another card. I think he's the second player to be a 2-time world champion. So that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
And that actually had him, gave him a strong push in the Player of the Year running. It's like Player of the Year before the tournament was like Simon Nielsen in the lead, Seth Banfield was in contention, Javier Dominguez, some other players as well. And I think if Seth had won, he probably would have topped Simon Nielsen for Player of the Year points, but Javier knocked him out. And I think Javier is like top 4 for Player of the Year, but Simon Nielsen is like still rank 1, I want to say. Don't quote me on the numbers. I don't know if like the tournament hasn't like updated yet, but Javier just like every tournament, whether it's the Pro Tour, Worlds, whatever, he's just always crushing it. Playing demons like a demon. But anyways, if you haven't watched the games, I really highly recommend just going on YouTube, looking up some of these games, especially Seth versus Javier in the semifinals. Insane match. Seth is literally up 2-0 with a lead in game 3 against Javier. It's like over, gonna sweep him. Javier comes back and then wins that game, forces game 5. Game 5 ends with a double Jace. It's like literally there's like Twitter clips running around. It's so crazy. Seth's board is like Ecclesatz, Creature, like just like an insane board, and like cards in hand. It's over. Javier like draws, looks at his hand. He's like, Jace. And they're like minus 30. And he's like, how many cards do you have? I don't know. Let's figure it out. Count them. They don't know. Seth flips over all his cards. 1 card left. And Javier's at 16 life. So it's like, no way is he going to have lethal damage with like 1 card. One turn left, rather. Dies. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
That is wild. Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, it was insane. He was very happy, obviously. He has a pretty cute speech at the end, too. Shout outs to a fellow Spanish speaker. But the thing I wanted to highlight with Seth specifically is that he was playing Gix's Command in the main board as a one-of, where everybody else that played Gix's Command was playing it in the side. And Seth, during the tournament, I was watching all of it. He was on camera a lot because he was like X and 1. He would like get Gix's Command in the main board and just like run away with these games. It really felt like such a good deck choice. I think that he definitely was like super favored to win. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, if you lose in the semifinals, like that's crazy, you know, but it is what it is. He would like top deck Gix's Command against some people, and there's so many like Oculus decks, Mentor decks, etc., where they're like pumping all these manifests, or there's just like a ton of mice, and you're just like, sweep all your guys. My guy gets lifelink and huge. You're dead. Like, just insane. Like, either board state is stale and now it's over, or like I'm losing and now I'm winning. Like, it was really fun to watch. Seth was super surgical with the deck, and like we talked about how this ramp deck can abuse the 5-drops. Case's command is drawing you cards in the ramp deck, and you can easily facilitate that 5-drop a lot easier than like the regular mid-range deck where you're like, oh, I'm taking like my whole turn off. Did I already establish a board state?
Well, and that's what I was going to say, is I think that it probably makes sense for his deck to have it as a one-of versus other decks, because I think that a normal Golgari mid-range deck, 5 mana is probably too slow.
Yeah.
But for a deck that can play it on 4, it's not. And so I think that...
Or double spell, etc.
Right. And so I think that's probably why it was good for him and not necessarily the right choice for others. But I do think that Giggs' Command is a good card, but it just gets so much better when you can turbo it.
Yeah, exactly. And then shout outs to our boy, Adam Weiss. He was actually one of our guests on the podcast a while back when he won the regional championship. Yeah. That's what qualified him for the world championship. And he ended up at 56th place, which is 3 ranks below Jim Davis, who was 53rd. I know that we have a lot of fans of Jim Davis that watch the show, so figured I'd mention him as well. And they both earned $6,000. Not too shabby.
No, and does he get any, like, do you know, is there any, like, qualification points that he gets for being at that place?
I kept asking people, and nobody knew the answer. Like,
I'll just DM him.
So many people.
I'll shoot him a message on Discord.
I wanted to do that, but because day 2 was so rough for him, I was like, I'm gonna leave him alone. You know what I mean? Like,
was it that rough?
He started off 5-2. He was 5-0, and then literally lost the rest of his games.
Oh my!
I think he might have won like 1 at the end.
It's
rough. Starting 5-0 at Worlds,
right?
First world champion.
Worlds,
first world championship, started 5-0. He was crushing. But yeah, there's like him and Jim Davis. I think were both 5-0, and they both just got like ran over at the end.
And what I think is just so awesome is, outside of the fact that Adam is a very, very good player, I like people in Magic now. Like, now that I'm getting, a little bit older in my game, of people that play well but just want to like shoot it while they're playing.
Yeah.
Like, you're just casual, you're making jokes, like, but you're playing good and competitive Magic.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I admire so much about him was at the RC. He's 5-3, so he has to win to go to day 2.
Yeah.
And he goes up, faces someone in the last round, and that guy, he's like, oh yeah, well, this is my first RC.
Oh,
and
the
Adam,
5-2 board, yeah.
Yeah, and Adam goes, oh, well, you really want to make day 2, right? And he's like, yeah, this will be really tough. And he goes, no, man, I won the last RC, I'll scoop, you got it. And like gave his opponent in the last round, day 2. And I was like...
Yeah, he scooped his homie into day 2 because the guy had never day 2'd before.
And he'd never been to an RC before.
Like, he did say, he was like, I already have 2 or 3 losses. I'm done. It was 3 losses, I'm pretty sure. They were playing for X3 day 2.
Yeah, it was like winner made day 2.
So Adam was like, I don't want to play X3 tomorrow and have to win every game. You got it, bro. Which, yeah, like he said, totally respect that. And to your point, players like Adam, I respect in the same way because... when I lose, I like rarely ever get mad, and I think that's like a pretty rare trait for Magic players. Most players, Frank in our Discord calls, are like screaming up a storm when they're losing.
I had that today.
I literally can like I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. But that is from, I don't know. I just don't have feelings. It is what it is. I'm not healthy.
Well,
a lot of players get really upset at the board. And Adam and a lot of like players that I respect are able to take that energy, because normal people get upset. It's completely normal. You get upset, you take the energy, and you go anywhere else with it. You know what I mean? It's like, hey guys, I don't want to talk about this. Like when he lost his passport for the Amsterdam thing, he couldn't go to the Amsterdam because he lost his passport. He literally at the Energy Wednesday was like, listen, I don't want to talk about this. Nobody asked me about it. Let's just play some Magic. And everyone's like, cool. Leave them alone. Because, like, why would you want to trigger somebody, And at the board, it's like, let's say, like when you had that bad beats game against that guy where you never hit a third land. He's like, oh, my deck did its thing. It's so easy for you to be like, yeah, sure, buddy. Where it's like, it's just a game. Take the energy, take your negativity, go somewhere else with it. unload it on League of Legends players, and then move on with your day.
Yeah, I say the only time that I really get bad is when stuff like that happens, where I'm like, dude, read the room. But the other time is I don't think that I rage too much while we're in person. I super rage while I'm online.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
On Discord, yeah.
Because for me, I just get upset with the bad beats of Magic is never worse than when you're online, because it's like, oh, auto shuffler just said
Yeah.
like 17 draws and I didn't get another land and I'm stuck on 3
Yeah, I know, when
and
you're
you're like,
playing on Arena, you're like, please, a land, only lands. Oh, okay, got it.
yeah. That's the stuff where I'm like, the odds of that are so unlikely. Like, I don't think I've ever been as screwed as bad or as often as when I'm playing either Arena or MTGO.
Right.
Sometimes it happens in person, but like,
It's pretty rare.
yeah.
Something about the way these robots shuffle. But anyways, the metagame breakdown for the event. So there was a lot of Girl Prowess, obviously. 20 Girl Prowess players, 16 Dimir mid-range. That includes the Demons deck, I believe. No, it doesn't. So 16 Dimir mid-range actual, 20 Girl Prowess, 13 Oculus, 13 Dimir Ramp, 9 Teamer Prowess, which we'll get into later. This was a super premier deck that popped up at the championships. 9 Dimir Demons, 9 Golgari midrange, 6 Jeskai Convoke, 5 Golgari Ramp, 3 White Caretaker, 2 Orzhov Demons, which is basically just like the mono black Demons deck, but it splashes for Get Lost and Legions to Ashes, so like purely removal. 2 Boros Enchantments, which is the aggro deck, plays like Skrell, Sheltered by Ghost, Shard Mage Rescue, Ethereal Armor, not to be confused with like Boros, like Caretaker. 1 Gruul Delirium deck, which is like super aggro, FOMO, Gruul aggro, Patchwork Beastie. Solitaire Reanimator was one of the decks, which is like the Squirming Emergence, Founding of the Third Path, Picklock Prankster deck with Atrexa and Lumra for payoffs.
Lumra.
Red deck wins, which is one of the top 8 decks. Basically just Mice and Lizard and like Screaming Nemesis, like we talked about. Really good for these red decks. No life gain for you. And Taylor Swift as always. And then the red Prowess deck as a one of. This one is Prowess because they had like Fugitive Codebreaker, in addition to like Slickshot and all that stuff. Just a normal mono red deck. And then the final one of was Azorius Caretaker, and this was only blue for like Jace and Enigma Jewel. But honestly, all the Caretaker decks, guys, just those were the guys that showed up with Rakdos midrange during the Vampire season.
Yeah.
Most played cards at the event. This is actually pretty interesting. I was reading the article. I liked a lot of what they were saying in the article. I totally agreed with most of it. Whoever wrote the breakdown for the WotC article, very good. Cut down, negate, go for the throw, duress, torch the tower. If that doesn't tell you what the format looks like, I don't know what will. Because like that's most played cards at the tournament were 1, the most efficient counter spell, 2, the most efficient removal spell, 3 and 4, the most efficient one-drop removal spells that have like restrictions, and then the last card is interacting with your opponent's hand for 1 mana. So it's like all the cards needed to be cheap or efficient or both, and that was like pretty much like the story of the standard format right now. Your decks are so efficient, so lean, but also the decks that are aggressive are so ready to kill you. Whether it's like a turn 2 Layla and a Resonance deck, or like just really fast mono red, turn 3 kill. Any kind of FOMO deck getting ready to set up a kill. All these tempo decks that can kind of lock you out and then set up their own game plan with their draw engines. You just need to be so efficient, and then like you as well, you just can't really make any misplays in this format right now against the top brass, unless you get really, really lucky with your draws, which can happen.
Yeah, I think a lot of that too just has to do with what Bloomborough gave us. Like, Bloomborough gave us aggro.
Yeah.
And like aggro that, even if my stuff dies, you're still taking damage.
Yep.
So I think that the efficiency is required to keep up with all of that. I mean,
Bloomborough gave us like a ton of aggro, and we felt that shift, but it also gave us a decent amount of late game cards with like the Caretaker's Talent and stuff. Duskborn really rounded that out with like, here's some of the most efficient cards we've ever seen in the Overlords. and a ton of other cards that were just playable.
All
Leyland
just
of
do
Resonance.
so much.
Yeah, everything in Tuskborn just does so much. And Leyland of Resonance, I talked about with mentioning Local Object before, but we were like proactive, aggressive ley lines don't get the respect that they deserve. Even though it wasn't played as much, Leyland of Resonance is still a powerhouse in the format, and I think part of the reason why a lot of the players at the or at the World Championship rather chose to not play the leyline plan is because it is less consistent in a field of the best players that are not going to make any misplays. You know, so like you don't want to have a liability in your deck when there's a chance that you're gonna fumble against like a Kai Buddha, you know what I mean? Like a Seth Manfield.
Right.
Imagine you're staring down Reed Duke and you're like, oh, I have 2 ley lines in my hand. You know? Yeah, so with that being said, the world players actually did side out or choose to cut ley line resonances. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I would say more than didn't in favor of Manifold Mouse and Innkeeper's Talent, which is kind of interesting for the Gruul decks. Caretaker's Talent took a huge nosedive, and the article mentions the fact that the card draw was a thing. I think that's a huge factor in it, because if you look at all these top decks that were winning, they were all finding a way to draw cards, whether it was Up the Beanstalk or Unholy Annex. I think the other card was Enduring Innocence, which is the white one, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, when you want these like cheap creatures to come in anyway, Enduring Innocence kind of makes Caretaker's Talent look like Enduring Innocence at home, you know?
Yeah, well, and, you know, the Dimir decks are also playing Enduring Curiosity, which is also drawing them cards too. And I think what's crazy to me is Torch the Tower, I think, was like an okay removal spell. Like, not great before this, but now that you have these Enduring cards that when they come back, like they just come back and you keep the effect.
There's so many cards
the exile
that
effect.
you want to exile.
Yeah.
Not even just the Endurings. There's just a ton of creatures that just needed exile between Cacophony Scamp, Heartfire Hero, where they die and they fling their damage back at you. Torch the Tower is huge for that. There is insane amounts of desire to have exile where people were sideboarding Obliterating Bolts too. You know, so like you had to have Torch and Obliterating Bolt for some of these matchups.
Jeez Louise.
It was, Exile is pretty prime.
Obliterating Bolt making a comeback.
Yeah, exactly. Teamer Prowess, I promise to talk about it. A lot of pros favored this build. It is such a sweet deck. If you haven't played this list on Arena or in person, give it a shot. So it combos with Valley Floodcaller, which if you have that card pulled up, maybe we can read it for them.
Sure.
The way this deck plays, it honestly, it's huge throwback to cons. It really plays like Jeskai Ascendancy combo, where Jeskai Ascendancy would let you untap all your guys whenever you cast a non-creature spell. And obviously they would abuse that with a combo with like Sylvan Caryatid and Retraction Helix, but there was a Jeskai deck during that era before the combo was like kind of more or less figured out that would just play like value, like Hordeling Outburst. I think it was like a 2-mana white spell that would make 2/1/1s. You'd make all these tokens and then start casting non-creature spells like Jeskai Charm and stuff into your guys. And effectively it was like prowess triggers in the set that gave us prowess.
So Valley Floodcaller, it's 2 and a blue, flash otter wizard. It's a creature with flash. You may cast non-creature spells as though they had flash. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, birds, frogs, otters, and rats you control gain +1/+1 until end of turn. Untap them.
Untap them.
Well, and what's crazy about that is because of Enduring Vitality, right?
Yeah.
The combo being it gives you mana for like your creatures tap for mana, so you just.
Yep, that's literally the deck. So you have Enduring Vitality, which is a Cryptolit Wraith, for those that don't know. And when it dies, it literally is Cryptolit Wraith. But if it's in play, all your creatures are Birds of Paradise. So with the Otter in play, and it has Flash, so like Beat Summoning Sickness, all these guys are untapping, and then giving themselves the prowess that they need. And then you have Storm Chaser's Talent, so you can easily pay into the level up. It's so cracked. Really, really powerful deck. It makes Jeskai Ascendancy combo the fair version, or I guess Jeskai Ascendancy, the fair version, not the combo, look like
Garbage.
Trash, really. Like, this is so much better than what that deck was. And it was a really cool deck back in the day.
I'm just happy my Valley Flood Caller stonks are going through the roof right now.
Yeah, honestly. I mean, I've been selling a lot of those to the Commander players. But anyways, so that's that deck. And we're going to talk really quick about the most played cards from Bloomburrow and Duskmourn because they were extremely represented, and I think it's kind of interesting to see this data. But
well, I think it's particularly interesting because of what you just said. Of like we've been talking so much about what Bloomburrow has done for us, what Duskmourn has done for us, and like this is the data that shows like this is exactly what we're getting.
Yeah,
you know?
And it's kind of funny seeing what cards are not the most played from these two sets, considering where the format is now and where it was like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
But number one, and not close, Paw Patch Formation, which is the 2-mana green spell that's like draw a card, make a food, or destroy an enchantment, or destroy an artifact.
Destroy an enchantment or destroy a creature with flying.
Oh, that's what it was. Destroy an enchantment or fly. And actually the flying thing, the plummet, huge. Archfiend of the Dross is like back.
Oh,
like,
yeah, that
he
card is
back,
scary.
And you have to kill him or
Right.
you just die.
Or you lose. Right.
99 of them were in the sideboards of players. Some people were mainboarding them. Second most played card, pretty obvious, honestly. Emberheart Challenger, insane. 96 copies in the field, insane card. I mean, drawing extra cards on your haste guy that you're pumping in like the deck that's like Pump City. Yeah, and his friend Heartfire Hero, number 3, only 4 less copies. Insane card. The Death Trigger to fling all that damage back. The Valiant to get a +1 counter. 1 mana creature. Like what an insane 1-drop, honestly. I think back to like Theros red deck and Amonkhet red deck, and I'm like, these cards are cracked. With that being said, our 4th most played card, Manifold Mouse, 83 copies in the field. Some weirdo was sideboarding 4 of them, or maybe there was just 4 running around in different sideboards. But
and what I think it's so interesting about that is, as you mentioned, them going offlane on a residence. I don't think that Manifold Mouse was like wildly popular before.
The main thing is that trigger, where it gives a guy double strike, triggers the Valiant stuff. That's really, really high impact, and it allows you to play like that slower, methodical aggro plan, like that Adam would talk about on the podcast. You know, like they have to respect your game plan. So like if you just don't throw away your cards, this guy giving your guys double strike every turn and triggering your Valiant for free. I watched somebody today at during the tournament. They were walled, so they went trigger, play exile a card off the top of my deck, skip combat, play that card, set myself up for the next turn. I was like, oh, that was really cool. So Manifold Mouse, just a really cool creature. That's the one that just lets you give double strike every turn. Or what was the other ability? It has like 2 different modes.
I think the other one for Manifold Mouse is haste.
Oh, it is haste, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's haste or double strike.
5th most played card, Fountain Port. 79 Fountain Ports running around.
Well, and I think that what I found interesting about this is because, right, the list I'm playing right now is Fountain Port. But Fountain Port feels like it's going back to what I anticipated the card being. Like, remember how I said I think Fountain Port is better than the Murex? Because you have the ability to make bodies, but they can also block, and you can just start sacking stuff to draw cards. Because in my list, I have 1 card that makes a token, and it's the Spyglass Siren.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of pro players were seeing, oh, this just wins me in the late game if we're both on top deck mode.
Right.
And so I think that's probably why it was running around.
Yep.
And
that's why
I love
it
that.
more than Murex too. Totally agree. It does everything. It's a Swiss Army knife land, and if you're playing a mid-range or a control deck, which everything is mid-range right now, let's be real.
I love.
Back to everything mid-range. Shout out to Frank, who said mid-range was dead last episode or something. Or was it 2 episodes ago? But what's it called? The land itself just does everything, and it's like kind of a free slot. Even if it's just a 1-of, it's just a free slot. It really is. Like you have to have 25 lands in these decks. You cannot miss a land drop in standard. That still remains true, even with all the aggro decks running around.
Right.
Anyways, 6th most played card. Back to the aggro. Might of the Meek, 64 copies. 7th most played card because Leyline of Residence took a nosedive for this tournament. Innkeeper's Talent, 52 copies. 8th most played card. Really, really like this one. This is the first card that wasn't just like all main deck, all side deck, like the first ones that we mentioned. This was actually a pretty even split. Into the Flood Maul, talking about efficient removal. 1 blue mana, bounce any creature, give them a fish, bounce anything. Very good card. It's like in a pinch, card saves you. And it's also like insane in the Otters deck. It like really is just like correct. Those are the ones that are mainboarding it.
Right.
Number 9, because there's so many lands on this list, I actually did top 15. But number 9 was Fabled Passage, 49 copies running around. Not that interesting, but hey, it's good to see the Fabled Passage is playable. We were wondering if it would be good enough for the format. Number 10, who also took a nosedive, Beza, the Bounding Spring. 48 copies in the field, a lot of them in sideboards, but most in the main decks. Number 11, in another land, the aggro land, Rockface Village. 41 copies running around. One weirdo had his in the sideboard. But
what?
Just like, I don't know
What
why.
kind of a choice is that?
Hey, you know what? Sometimes you just don't know.
Sometimes you just gotta cook.
I respect that guy. He is in the World Champions, okay? We're not. But anyways, number 12, Thunder Trap Trainer. 36 copies running around. So I think that's because of all these Teamer Otter decks that we saw, but they call it Prowess. It's Otters.
It's Otters.
Well,
it's creature combo. It's not even... Okay,
yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
Thunder Trap Trainer. It's not even like a Prowess trigger. It just is like plus one.
+1/+1. Yeah, you dirty liars.
Yeah. It's Selesnya Enchantments. Oh, come on, just call it Boggles, man.
Just
Number 13, Storm Chaser's Talent. Really good, really efficient card. I mean, just makes your Otters, level it up, do your thing, go crazy. Otters go burr.
Otters go
Number 14, Valley Floodcaller. And then number 15, shoutouts that Caretakers is not in the top 15 because it's so crap now. Cruel Claws Heist.
Stonks down.
Yeah, literally, it's gone. It's dead. Cruel Claws Heist, number 15. And then for Duskborn, I'll have Frank. I'll read some of these. I'll point to them whenever I want him to read one of these for you guys that are driving right now.
Yeah.
Shout out to anybody who's driving and is gonna like the video when they get to the gas station. Number 1, if you could read this one, it's pretty important. We're gonna see this card a lot in like probably more than just standard at this point. Ghost Vacuum, 126 copies running around. One of them actually in the main deck of somebody's deck. I couldn't figure out whose it was. I didn't have enough time to go through all the lists because the way Wizards put the deck lists up was the most horrendous way possible. It's like alphabetical by name. I'm like, oh man, can you guys not put these in a breakdown, please? No, absolutely not. Luckily for all the one-up decks, I was able to use Control F. That actually worked. But Ghost Vacuum, give it to Frank.
Ghost Vacuum. 1 mana, generic, artifact. You can tap to exile target card from a graveyard. You can pay 6, tap, sacrifice Ghost Vacuum. Put each creature card, exile with Ghost Vacuum, onto the battlefield under your control with a flying counter on it. Each of them is a 1/1 spirit in addition to its other types. Activate only as a sorcery.
Speaking of cards that like break the mirror, like Fountain Port, this card just ends games. The amount of times I looked up at my screen watching the World Championships and I'd see like 1/1 spirit, 1/1 spirit, 1/1 spirit, like these like WotC like printouts that they would have on top of all these creatures. I was like, oh, something bad happened. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, especially with the ETB effects, right? Like,
yes.
If you just start exiling your opponent's stuff early, then like you survive in the late game. Cool. Now I've got a ton of dudes.
Notable, you can only tap this as a sorcery, so it's pretty hard to use it as like an unlicensed Hearse or anything else. You can only tap it at sorcery speed, so that really does matter. But even though it's sorcery speed for Spanish standard specifically, decks don't go as fast as like modern. So like you're still gonna get a lot of their good cards when you want to. And now Foundations is giving us like Scavenging Ooze, so it might get a little bit worse for some of these guys.
Well, and I don't even think that there is cards currently that hate it, right? Like Paw Patch Formation can't hit this card. So it's not like you have a lot of ways to interact.
There's not a lot of free artifact.
There's not a lot of good ways to interact with the Ghost Vacuum.
Right. A lot of people were very much focused on enchantment removal or the like. So yeah, I definitely agree. Just like Bloomburrow, Duskborn has a lot of lands on the list. Specifically, Duskborn gave us some very strong rare lands, and they kind of took over the format because they're extremely efficient, like we talked about. And I'm not surprised that everybody's playing them. They're just some of the best lands we've ever seen. They're very, very cool. Honestly, kind of remind me of what like dual lands would be like if there was no fetches. But number 2 is Gloomlake Verge, which is the Dimir one. 101 copies because there were so many Dimir decks, obviously. Number 3, believe it or not, the Gruul one, Thornspire Verge, 85 copies running around. And it's notable that this land is actually so good for the aggro decks because it's all these lands are, I start as one color, but if you get either of my color pair basic types, you can tap for the second color. So you can, if you have a mountain or a forest, Thornspire taps for green in addition to red. Either or, not both. But the fact that it's red first is so good for these aggro decks because a lot of people were like, oh, I wish it was green first. I want to have my elf on turn 1. It's like, yeah, but look at all these red decks going like Swiss Spear, Manifold Mouse, Heartfire Hero, whatever on turn 1.
Yeah.
I don't care about the green thing.
I was going to say Manifolds too.
Is it? Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
All these one-drop mice or Taylor Swifts or whatever, whatever creature it might be, you don't want the Snakeskin Veil until turn 2. So, like, it's actually kind of cracked. I think it's a really perfectly designed land. Number 4, actually beating out some of these lands. Unholy Annex, 4th most played card. 2 in the sideboards of some random guy's deck, 76 main boards. 5, Overlord of the Hauntwoods, the best Overlord, probably. We'll see.
Not close.
Yeah, I don't think it's close, actually. Everybody's playing this guy. 76 copies in main boards. I would say he beat out the lands, but he kind of just makes them. Number 6, Flood Farm, the Azorius one, 60 copies. And we did talk about how, even though Azorius didn't top 8, still very strong, still a good double type. Not Caretakers, though, and also not Control. Rest in peace. It is just really powerful tempo. Number 7, shout-outs to the Azorius players, Aberrant Oculus, 52 copies in main decks and 3 in some random sideboards. Number 8, like Frank mentioned earlier, Enduring Curiosity. Those blue players got to draw cards. 55 copies running around the field, just like Aberrant Oculus. Curiosity is going to get so crazy if flying creatures get good with foundations. I just thought about that right now for something we're going to talk about later. Number 9, the green-white land, Hushwood Verge, 48 copies running around. And then, did you have something to say?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, if flying creatures get good, that's the whole Dimir deck now.
Oh, well, here's the thing. Empyrean Eagle's in the next set, and there's a ton of, like, these weird fairy cards. One of them specifically that I think is very good. We'll talk about that soon. But number 10, our boy, the Unstoppable Slasher, 45 copies running around. And honestly, he got the top 8, and it's just a crazy card. Unstoppable Slasher is just a crazy
so good.
card.
That's one of the few things, like right when I was cracking all those boxes to like try and get the Overlords for the RC. And then now, like, there are some cards that I'm like, oh, I got a playset of Curiosities. Didn't know that paid off. Yeah. Oh, I've got a playset of Slashers. Didn't know that paid off.
Right. Yeah, I remember when you're like, another Unstoppable Slasher. And I'm just like, It's just funny to me how many good, like, 3-drop creatures came out of Duskborn that are, like, just extremely playable between, like, Flytrap, Oculus, Slasher, Screaming Nemesis. Like, just a ton
all of the Enduring cards.
Yeah, no, literally. And then, like, Huntwoods, if you want to count that as 3 for the impending cost. Just, like, a ton. Like, it almost feels like they figured out creatures, like, again. In, like, a really good way where, like, they could make a 3-mana creature not feel too overbearing for standard, but also be, like, potentially playable, like, even in, like, modern for, like, Oculus and Flytrap. With that being said, number 11, shoutouts to whom I just mentioned, Screaming Nemesis, 22 running around in main decks, and 19 in sideboards for the people that hate life. Shoutouts to our Otter players, Enduring Vitality, coming in at number 12 with 36 copies. Number 13, I was just doing mental math, 36.
I thought you died. I was like, are you okay?
36 divided by 9 is 4. Oh, that makes sense. 4 in each of the 9 decks. I'm figuring it out, guys. Number 13, Overlord of the Mistmoors. So the blue guy actually made the list. 34 copies running around.
Nope. Mistmoors is the white one.
Oh, my bad. Mistmoors is the white one.
It's Flood Pits is the blue one.
Flood Pits is the blue one. Yeah, Mist just sounds blue to me.
It does sound blue. No, that's true, though.
No, you're right. Mistmoors, yes. Making those 2-1 flyers.
Yeah,
like we talked about, they're insane.
Yeah, the mist brings the...
Yep. They're not... Oh, yeah. Are they spirits? Because if there's spirits, I think that actually is kind of insane. We might see spirits coming back.
I'll find that out for you right now.
Number 14, Kaito Bane of Nightmares. Actually not a useless planeswalker for once. 29 copies running around. And then the last card.
Insects. They're just insects.
So sad. The last card, the 15th card rather, is Silent Hall Creeper. 20 of them running around in sideboards. 4 in some main decks, but kind of surprising. Just a random flash blue creature. I mean, enchantment triggers your Eerie, I suppose. But yeah, those are all like the really main played cards from Duskborn and Bloomburrow, and it's just kind of interesting to me what happened at this event, because it really looks like that's what the format is trending towards. If you're not like already getting with the times, caretakers, stop playing it, adapt, figure it out. It's just not good. White really just like took a nosedive in popularity, especially the way White was being played. Like Sunfall went from like one of the best cards to like, I don't care if I have a Sunfall anymore, which is kind of crazy to me.
That is crazy.
I wouldn't have thought.
I would never guess that would happen to Sunfall.
Definitely not. Wouldn't have predicted that. With that being said, we're gonna get into some quickly get into some minor early predictions. Keep in mind it's 10/28 Monday night. We haven't seen the rest of Foundation spoilers. From what's been spoiled though, I don't think there's gonna be too much more insane stuff. And we already confirmed we're not getting Snapcaster or Dark Confidant or any of those kind of cards.
Because they hate us.
They hate us. Honestly, they hate boredom. That's why we didn't get those cards. Go ahead.
No, sorry. This is making me think about it. I'm not going to get over this. I think that my hot take is that Silent Hall Creeper is going to go up in like not only stonks, but like I think the card is mirror breaking in a lot of ways.
Doesn't it like kind of clone one of your guys?
So yes, so
why don't you read it out? Because I actually don't remember all the abilities.
Yes,
but I do think Silent Hall Creeper is like a little underrated. It's like a 2-drop, right?
Yeah, 2-drop enchantment creature horror. Silent Hall Creeper can't be blocked. Whenever Silent Hall Creeper deals combat damage to a player, choose one that has been chosen. Put 2 counters on Silent Hall Creeper. Draw a card. Silent Hall Creeper becomes a copy of another target creature you control. And so it isn't as powerful as these 2 cards, but remember, this is standard. I think of this as like Frog or Tameo, where it's like, this is must answer as a board card.
Frog.
Yeah, Demir, like Psychic Frog.
Oh.
Because
I see what you're saying. It's like a standard frog.
Yeah, standard frog. It on damage, like it's unblockable. It could just be an unblockable 3/3. You are going to draw cards off of it probably. And then if you get, I don't know, like, let's say a Mistmore's out. Well, I'm going to copy this Mistmore's eventually, but it's bigger because it's got 2 counters on it. Like, you can copy an amazing card later in the game or just leave it as a 3/3 that can't be blocked.
Yeah, I was going to say, Unblockable Overlord seems like the main way to use it. But, I mean, honestly, if it becomes a slasher, unblockable slasher, you're just like, well, I win now. So
yeah, you're dead.
You're dead. Yeah, definitely agree. Card is insane. I wonder if people will start mainboarding it more, or if it'll just stay a sideboard. Like I board this in to win.
But as a copy, does it lose those other abilities?
Oh, that's true. Actually, it would probably lose that. But even if it was just a copy of Slasher, like
it's just Slasher with counters.
Yeah, it's like
okay. Instead of being a 2/3, it's a 4/6.
Right. And if you copy
4 or
like
5.
any of the overlords, like
yeah, you get all the attack triggers.
Too bad it's not really that good with Boiler Bridges. There's no like red-blue deck really that's not Otters.
Yeah,
that's the only unfortunate part. But yeah, so like I said, 10/28. Haven't seen all the Foundation spoilers, but it looks like the set is like, in the grand scheme of things, a lot of powerful cards, a lot of cool cards, but like a baseline set for WotC, like a way for them to like tell you what we expect the power level to look like going forward. As a shout out, one of the cards I had here for like an honorable mention was the Scry lands got spoiled, so we have all the temples as like rare lands for 5 years. So like the worst your deck can get is you're gonna have a dual temple. So like that's actually not bad as a floor. And then Phyrexian Arena got reprinted in Foundations, which means it's gonna stay legal for another 5 years. So we'll have had Phyrexian Arena for like 7 years at standard when it finally rotates, if it does. And that's kind of a big deal because Phyrexian Arena, like even back in the day, it was a card that like you could potentially see played in Modern, like in 2014. And drawing a card every turn for free, not like nothing, not like the most broken effect, but it's like a pretty strong card, all things considered. Like, you even play it in Commander occasionally. And seeing that that's where they see the power level going forward is kind of interesting to me. I think it's cool. I made a list of the cards that I thought from the spoilers looked pretty interesting to me that could make some impact or will make some impact. No particular order. And then Frank's wrote down some of his as well. I'm going to try to go through them pretty fast because I did read off a lot. We're getting back Vivian Reed. Of the 5 Planeswalkers that came out, she's the one that matters the most to me. I think she's like extremely high impact. We had a lot of ramp decks back when she was legal back in the day, 2020 era or whenever she came out, before like War of the Spark, and she was really strong back then. I always liked her a lot. All of her abilities are relevant, and she's kind of like a catch-all toolbox, kind of like at the end of when those 5 mana Planeswalkers mattered, but she's just like a good card overall. You want to read off the abilities really quick for Vivian Reed if you have it available?
Planeswalker, 3 double green, +1. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. -3 is destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying.
Yep.
-8, you get an emblem with creatures you control, get +2/+2, and have vigilance and trample and indestructible.
Yeah, so this is why I like Vivian Reed so much. Her minus is literally Paw Patch Formation, which was the most played Bloomburrow card. It was always a good catch-all back in that standard that she was legal in, and I think it's going to be that way again, considering how much ramp and access to mana we have now. She just slots right into a Beanstalk deck so nicely. She seems like a good domain card to me. I feel like any green deck would want her. She could even like sideboard in like Golgari mid-range, like realistically. She's a good mirror breaker. She draws you cards. She draws you specific cards. I really want to hit a Shieldred right now. Let's go find it. And her ultimate is obviously like GG, like pretty much every other Planeswalker. In addition, I don't think it's going to matter too much, but keep in mind that doubling season is legal. And although it doesn't really matter for tokens or 1/1 counters, there could be a control or a ramp or some kind of hybrid of the two deck. I was talking about with Julian before we recorded, and we were thinking, yeah, it could actually be plausible because Innkeeper's Talent is such a upfront investment and it costs so much, and you can't just kind of like one-shot it. If doubling season resolves, doubling all your Planeswalker abilities right off the bat and just like ulting them, there could be some kind of like deck that does that realistically, especially with like Hauntwood turning around and Off the Beanstalk being so efficient. That's something I could definitely see happening. But Vivian Reed in general, I think just like overall just fits for the format.
Yeah, I originally was like, when I saw that you had this on the list. But here are a couple things. Because for me, I don't love the plus. I think it restricts you in the fact that you can only hit lands or creatures.
Yeah. It's not like exactly draw a card.
Right. But what I think is relevant, given our current state of Magic, is I think the destroy. Right, we know that plummet matters, and the like her minus whatever being plummet. I think hit your Overlord. That's big game. Then, right, her ultimate is win the game, which I think like really matters for Planeswalkers nowadays in Standard.
She's definitely a good catch-all. Worst case, she's a sideboard card, but like she's the kind of like Paw Patch Formation that you don't really feel too bad about mainboarding in some of these decks. Because like Paw Patch Formation is like, okay, I'll draw a card or make a food because I really need to draw a card right now. But like when you slam a Vivian, at least you get to keep the Paw Patch Formation. You know?
Right,
like,
exactly.
They have to answer it before you're like, I'm going to minus this.
Yeah, and on top of it, you grabbing, like, if you are playing ramp and then you do grab your own Hauntwoods off of, like, the tick up, you're like, I'm cooking.
Yes, exactly. Second card on my list. I really think this card's insane. Frank's going to read it out for you guys. It's Tiny Bones. Tiny Bones Bauble Burglar. This guy, I think he's cracked. I might be wrong, but I think this
You're
guy
not
is
wrong.
insane.
I'm with you. I will die on this hill. Little Bones, as I've deemed him. Tiny Bones Bauble Burglar, 1 and a black, legendary creature, skeleton rogue. Whenever an opponent discards a card, exile it from their graveyard with a stash counter on it. During your turn, you may play cards you don't own with stash counters on them from exile, and mana of any type can be spent to cast those spells. And then you can tap Tiny Bones for 3 and a black. Each opponent discards a card, activate only as a sorcery, and Tiny Bones is a 1/3. I don't know. We're getting so many discard effects that it just makes me feel like, wow, we're really Wizards is trying so hard to make Liliana of the Veil a playable Magic card, and Little Bones is getting us there.
Well, like, so we already kind of had like a black like deck that was trying to do this before, which was like the Hostile Investigator, Liliana, what's the 2-drop? Bandit's Talent. Is that what it's called? Yeah. I always call it Scavengers, but that's the wrong one. Bandit's Talent, like in Pioneer, it's like Waste Not. Like these discard decks are so close, and I really think this is like the guy, the Dauthi Voidwalker kind of like effect that kind of like gets you there, where you're like, oh, now I'm stealing your cards, literally. It's like whether you're playing like a Rakdos discard or whatever, Tiny Bones joins up, whatever you want to do with it. I think that the card is like really good and has the tools around it to be even more powerful. On top of the fact that it's just good by itself, it makes these cards playable. You can use his own discard effect. Duress was one of the most played cards in this format right now. The fact that you can play that in your discard deck and feel good. And
it's a 1/3, so it'll block just fine.
Yeah, it just seems very good, and I think I think there's a deck to be made around it. Of all the cards that are like built around in the foundations, I feel like Tiny Bones is like one of them.
Little Bones.
Next card, Scavenging Ooze. For those that don't know about Scavenging Ooze, welcome to being alive for 15 years, I guess. But for the old people in the room, it is a 2-drop green creature, 2/2. It is basically the squirrel or raccoon guy that turns into a 7/7. You can pay a green mana to exile any card in the graveyard with Scavenging Ooze. If it's a creature, you gain a life and you put a 1/1 counter on the Scooze. It gets big fast, and Graveyard matters right now, big time. It's in green, huge upgrade to all these green decks that just want a way to deal with graveyards, but like also don't want to just like play bad cards like Rest in Peace. I saw somebody like in George's Discord the other day were like, should I play Rest in Peace against Gruul? And me and Zach were like, what are you doing? like just because not die doesn't mean you don't die. But yeah, so
well, and on top of it, I don't know. I'm on a separate note for Scooze. I'm just mad they didn't give us better artwork.
Oh sure, I don't
like
mind the original
OGs,
artwork. I'll be honest,
it's not bad. It's not bad, but like I wanted some flavor.
Yeah, some new artwork. For sure. It would have been cool to see some new artwork, but I wouldn't mind if they give us like a showcase. If they kept the old artwork and they give us like a showcase of it, then I'm happy.
Yeah.
Kind of like when they did that with Core 21 as well.
Gotta crack some collecty woosties.
Exactly. The next card. So I kind of like low key predicted it, but there's a lot of tribal support in Foundations, like quite a bit, and some that I didn't expect, like Angels. But Giada, if Angels are good, Giada Fawns of Hope will definitely see play. If the Angels end up being good, she's a 2-mana Angel. She can tap for white, which is kind of funny that she's a mana dork, but she makes white mana only for Angel creatures. So if Angels are good, she'll definitely be very good.
Yeah, it never popped off in Standard when she was printed during.
There was so much other things to do with
yeah,
the game.
during Nuke Penna.
Was it Nuke? Yeah, Nuke Penna.
Yeah, Nuke Penna.
Oh, this was even after the Life Gain time. Then I'm thinking of like the Kaldheim restoration, or it's like the Speaker of the Heavens, like like you see the Reddit posts with like the guys that get so mad, like, oh, mono white is broken, they should ban Life Gain. Like, oh my god, those Reddit posts would make my day. I like made a habit of like going on. I would actually go on Reddit, which I hate, and screen cap the like unhinged posts of people complaining about like mono black discard or mono white Life Gain and like post them in Discord.
That's so funny.
I should have pinned some of those, but oh man, yeah, I definitely, yeah, it's crazy. She was in New Capenna. That is so funny. Can you pull up the next card? It's Moss-Born Hydra.
Yeah.
This one I think is actually pretty interesting. I don't know if it'll be good, but the way the card reads, if it is good, I don't see why people wouldn't play it. It's just kind of like a good finisher, and it's like dies to removal is an argument, but if this card doesn't die, it kills you.
Mossborn Hydra. It's 2 and a green. Trample. This creature enters with a 1/1 counter on it. Landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, double the number of 1/1 counters on this creature. I think this is the creature that you just play on turn 4. Like, I think that instead of being like, I run it out on 3 and then have it die into cut down, I just like play on turn 4, play the creature, play the land, and then be like, do you have the cut down?
Well,
No,
I don't
no,
even mind
bam.
playing it on turn 3 because, like, if I'm playing, let's say, GB mid, and the format hasn't changed, nothing else has happened. I'm just playing GB mid right now. I'm playing this or Glissa. I don't care if you kill it. You know what I mean? I'm just like, resolves, go. No kill spell. Okay, Fabled Passage. You're dead.
I also, like, when I saw this card, my immediate thought was, you know how, like, Heap Harvest lived for a very short time in Domain, right before Hauntwoods came in? I was like, another reason for Heap Harvest to come back.
No, it's just Hauntwoods again. Trigger.
Just kidding. All my hopes and dreams for Heap Harvest just died right there.
Huntwoods is just so insane. But that's the thing. Huntwoods also works with this guy so well. I just think that,
That's
like,
vomit.
it's like
gross.
what you said. You go turn 3 Huntwoods, and you're like, okay, this guy in turn 4. Maybe you even play Snakeskin Veil because it's so good. And you're just like, go. I'm going to Snakeskin Veil this guy if you try to kill him. If you let me do that, he's going to have an extra counter. You're dead. Yeah, I don't know. The guy seems really good to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but I like my Spud Hydra a lot. Next card, Tribals, again. Elves. If elves matter, Elvish Archdruid is going to be cracked. He's probably one of the best elves in the game ever. Never really got played in Legacy that much, but definitely was terrific for modern elves when it was playable. Shout out to Bowmaster. And I guess like everything else in the format. The next card I almost wanted to cut off this list, but I'm honestly not sure how to feel about it. Julian and I were talking about it today. 9 Lives Familiar. It like seemed like a cool stack engine until I realized that the trigger happens at end of turn, so you're not really like getting this guy back. The only thing I really do love about this, and I will say that it is an interesting caveat because a lot of creatures like Bloodghast and zombies that like return themselves to the battlefield, Forsaken Miner, all that stuff, they always say can't block because they don't want you to have reanimator blockers. It's kind of annoying. It kind of makes the game drag. So usually these guys that like reanimate themselves, they don't block. That's like the gimmick. 9 Lives Familiar does block. And I don't know if it's because it only has 8 chances to do it, or 9 rather, that they're like happy with it. But like 9 turns of blocking is kind of crazy. This guy, the only reason that matters for the context of standard is because it blocks Slasher so well. You're just like, comes back, comes back. I'll block your Slasher until I'll figure it out. You know what I mean? And so like that just seems really interesting to me. But it just, if there's ever like a sacrifice deck for like Pioneer or something like that, this is definitely a cool card. We can see something with it. But
I don't know, man. It feels like.
It feels just slow.
I see what
it was instant.
Well, I see what you're saying, and I'm like, okay, but paying 3 mana to like infinitely block Slasher, and like if they decide to like have a removal kill me, it doesn't matter because it comes at end step.
Yeah.
3 mana feels like a lot.
I feel like they made this card for a reason. That's like the only reason I'm mentioning it. Like it has such a unique ability, and I'm just not sure. I'm not sure. But 9 Lives Familiar, it's a 3 mana black 1/1 cat. It comes in with 8 counters, like 8 like life counters or whatever, and every time
revival
counters because a cat has 9 lives.
Because we needed a different type of counter.
Yeah, we needed another way for cats to have 9 lives in Magic. You know, there wasn't enough cards that say that. But every time it dies, it comes back on end step until it runs out of those counters. There's got to be something you can do with this card. I haven't thought of it yet, but when I first read the card, didn't realize it was end step, and I was like, this is sick. I can't wait to 9. I can't wait for Viscera Seer, and we're gonna Mayhem Devil people. Anyways, the next card, Heartfire Immolator. Really excited about this one actually. I'll let Frank read it after I give the synopsis, but this guy can fling itself, and we've already seen like multiple creatures doing that in the format right now. And this guy kind of does it in a really efficient way and pumps himself with prowess. So like I think this guy is like insane. Fits right into like how these red decks are looking right now. So I might actually change what my rankings look like later, but we have like some like wins, losers, and like people that got nothing later on. This guy seems sweet. Go ahead, Frank.
Heartfire Immolator. 1 in a red, human wizard, prowess. You can pay 1 red, sacrifice this creature. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker. I just like this because if your opponent has like lifelink or something on the field, you can just be like, brap, brap, brap. I'm going to pump up something else and then throw him at your lifelinker.
Yeah.
Now you don't get that life, die.
Yeah, and I like him a lot because of Leyline of Resonance. There's some like times where I was playing the red deck and I'm like, man, I can't sack my guy. And it's not a cacophony scam, so I just have to like hit you, and then now my guy's tiny again. I like the fact that I can guarantee get my Manifest Dread triggers off of like Turn Inside Out with this guy. And the Prowess trigger makes him even easier to use and abuse because it's not Valiant, it's like actually Prowess. So like if you hit like this guy with Leyline, like you don't even have to go off right away. You can hold it until like turn 3 or 4 and like do it when you're ready. He just seems really good to me.
Yeah, the only thing that's rough is that you can't throw face with the damage.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like you are flinging, but you have to like do burn together to really get it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Callous Sellsword is just going to be Callous Sellsword, but yeah, being able to like maybe use it to facilitate like getting rid of the blockers, etc. Like the red deck does struggle to get through sometimes. Like I've had multiple games where like Archfiend of the Dross just walls you, and you're like, well, I'm super dead. And Urdbreast Forge, by the way, gets completely dumpstered by Archfiend because you have to sack the token and you have to make the token. And like, yeah, I had a game where I went like double Forge against Archfiend. I was like, I'm gonna get this guy, and then he went double Archfiend. I was like, I
am dead.
I'm fucking dead. Like that's it, man. Like GG. I went like I go to 16. Oh, and he didn't even attack. It was so disrespectful. He was just like pass. Like, not attack, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, lose 8. But anyways, yeah, Llanowar Elves, the next one on the list. We've already seen this card. We knew this card was coming months ago. The impact of a 1-mana dork is pretty obvious. I think it's pretty clear how good this card's going to be. Will it be like the end-all be-all like before? No. Is it good now, though? Hell yeah. Like,
I mean, turn 2 Hauntwoods is like making me throw up.
Turn 2 Glissa, turn 2 Slasher, turn 2
Slasher.
Turn 2 like Screaming Nemesis with like Gruul, FOMO.
Wait, you could just play green black and do
Unholy Annex on turn 2.
Well, or you could just have your combo with Bloodletter on turn 3.
Yeah.
If they don't touch elf, it's like
triple black, but
Blooming Marsh, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Blooming Marsh Swamp.
The meme back in the day was turn 2 Liliana for Jund, and like Llanowar Elves is going to facilitate a lot of these. We talked about these 3-drop creatures really mattering, and it's going to be high impact for sure.
Yeah, high
Definitely
impact.
Not broken.
I'm scared for this card personally.
Remember, they are putting 4 Llanowar Elves in their decks, so their early game gets more explosive. Their late game loses some good top decks. Next card, also really good for green black. Maelstrom Pulse. This card is insane. I'm actually so happy we finally have it in like the format in general. I don't even think it's legal in Pioneer before Foundations. Maelstrom Pulse is green black 1 sorcery, destroy target non-land permanent, and then it also hits all the non-land permanents with the same name. So you see a ton of like Convoke tokens. Goodbye. And it's also just like good at killing mice. It's going to be good at killing. I mean, it hits enchantments as well, so it's going to be good for getting rid of all these overlords. And Mistmores, making those 2/1s, pop them with Maelstrom Pulse. Not quite as good as like Gix's Command, but like it's cheaper. It's more efficient on your mana. You don't have to play it in the Golgari mid-range deck since you can't ramp as hard. Hits beans too. Your opponent gets double beans. You're like, get rid of these. Next card on my list. This was the fairy card I was mentioning or hinting to earlier. If fairies or flyers go hard, Feybloom Trick just seems so crazy to me. I'll let Frank read it because I'm going to butcher it, but it's like a 3-mana blue spell, and it makes 2 1/1 fairies, and then it taps your opponent's guy, like stuns them or something. Seems insane to me.
Instant speed, create 2 1/1 blue fairy creature tokens with flying. When you do, tap target creature an opponent controls, and it's 3 in a blue. Instant.
Oh, is it 3? I thought it was 2 in a blue.
I'm sorry, 2 in a blue. It's
Okay,
3 mana total, is what I meant to say.
Instant speed, make 2 guys, and tap their best guy. Like, that's That seems really good to me, especially if you're gonna play like Empyrean Eagle, which is later on in my list, and maybe there's another blue guy that got spoiled. He's not on my list, but he's like a 4-mana flash guy, fairy, and like all your spells gain flash when he's in play. So like there could be some kind of like crazy flyer deck. And Mistborn kind of fits in nicely here, Azorius style.
What was the card? It was 2 and a white. You make 2 spirits with flying. And then,
Lingering Souls.
Yes, I was like, this gives me.
I wanted Lingering Souls and Foundations.
This gives me Lingering Souls vibes.
Yeah, I really Lingering Souls. I was gonna make a video, but I didn't get the chance to because of like personal family stuff. But Lingering Souls, man, I really, really wanted Lingering Souls for Foundations. That was one of the cards I was gonna shout out. Burst Lightning coming to the format. Super excited. 1 red mana to shock. But you can kick her for 4, I believe, to make it a 5-drop, and then it's 4 damage instead of 2. This card was already like a really good modern card back in the day. It was honestly really solid. I never got to play with it in its original standard, but I think this has more impact than Play with Fire for the current format because it's so mid-rangey, where like this kind of slots into any red mid-range deck or even the aggro decks. But if you get stuck on cards and you get to the 5th land, because you are making lands drops in this format, that extra 2 damage, even for the aggro decks, could come up. But for the mid-range players, like, yes, I want to tap all into this to like flame slash your best guy. 4 damage kills a lot of creatures in this format, and that's gonna be high impact. On top of the fact that like it also hits face. It's like hitting face for 4 with 1 spell, even if it is 5 mana, that could like literally be the game changer right there, especially if it's like a top deck war. Next card is like a triple, but Progenitus got spoiled. For those who don't know, Progenitus is a 10-drop that's 2 of each colored pip, no generic mana, and it's a 10/10 flying dragon or hydra or something that has protection from everything. Seems crazy until you realize that it dies to Day of Judgment, which is also in the set. The reason why I think Progenitus is interesting is because of, similar to the other 2 cards that I have here, Muldratha, the Gravetide, which is 6 mana, soul tie creature, 3 generic, blue, black, and green. Also like a big creature you ramp into, obviously not as hard as 10 mana, but Muldratha says you can play cards out of your graveyard of like each CMC once per turn. Which is like a really cool card to ramp into, along with Coma World Eater, which is a new card for Foundation, completely new card. Frank, you want to read Coma really quick, and then I'll jump into the point?
Yeah. Coma World Eater. 3 green, blue. This spell can't be countered. Trample, ward 4. Whenever Coma deals combat damage to a player, create 4 3/3 blue serpent creature tokens named Coma's Coil.
Yeah, so like Coma is like this new Coma I really, really like. The uncounterable is clutch. You can Squirming Emergence early if you get a chance to. Can't Squirming Emergence Progenitus, unfortunately, because it's got Blightsteel Claws where it shuffles itself back into your deck if it dies. That alone actually is kind of cool because I think you could sideboard Progenitus for like Jace if you really wanted to. Ward 4, yes.
Oh my gosh.
The Coma is like a really good finisher. Trample, uncounterable. The ramp decks can happily cast this into like anybody and feel comfortable. And if they can't answer it, they're just like dead. Ward 4 makes it really hard to answer. If you have an answer, you're like tapping your entire mana base for the turn. So hope that you don't have anything else that you need to must answer, you know? And Muldratha kind of fits the same vein with these like soul tie decks where you're like filling your graveyard up with stuff and you want to recast it. Now you're not worried about what you mill if you hit a Muldratha with Squirming Emergence. Progenitus, I think, fits for this type of deck if they want to like Squirming Emergence and Omniscience. Now you have like a Progenitus to play for that's protection from everything that might be like a Mirror Breaker. It's also just like an insane ramp target for like any Hauntwoods deck or Domain or whatever that can cast Progenitus reasonably. It is still protection from everything. It can't be blocked. It blocks everything. If you get a Progenitus out in like some kind of quirky mirror match, it might be a card that's like a Mirror Breaker. But the Coma and Muldratha, I think for sure are like high impact, especially for the Squirming Emergence decks, which is kind of interesting.
I can just see this now. I can already know that Julian is going to be cooking this as soon as this
but
is
we were
as
talking
soon
about
as
it.
it's legal. He's going to play the new green ley line that makes everything just cost Wooburg, and then
Oh, sure.
he's gonna ramp. He's gonna be like, cool, Haunt Woods, turn 5, or turn 4, Progenitus, go. You're welcome, by
That'd
the
be
way.
funny if the Fist of Suns Leyline got played. But I honestly, I told Julian I like Muldrotha for standard, and he's like, why? It doesn't seem that good. And I was like, well, Skirmish Emergence, self mill, like you're already self milling right now. It actually lets you cast all those cards now, and you're gonna play him like on turn 3 because he's a 6-drop. And I could just see the wheels turning. Like, oh yeah, wait a minute, like this is actually gonna be
Everything
pretty good
Julian
for me.
wants.
Next card on my list I had was Empyrean Eagle. I already mentioned this earlier. Empyrean Eagle's blue white 1/3-drop flyer, and it makes all of your other flyers get +1/+1. So if fairies are good, card is gonna be nuts. And fairies like to be mono blue right now, so like you can make it Azorius. It doesn't have to be like Dimir. Like there's no Bitter Blossom.
And then you just play, as you said, play Mistmoors, and then
Right, exactly. And then you have Mistmoors, and you're just going crazy. Imperial Eagle and Mistmoors alone to me is like already
crazy.
Like, wait,
Yes.
wait,
Oh, look, the deck.
Wait.
Dot deck.
And then like, okay, well, I might as well play Shelter by Ghosts. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, no, I definitely think it's gonna be interesting. The last cards on this list are gonna start getting cute, but I just wanted to mention them. Scrawling Crawler. People are memeing on it because it's like a 3-mana Howling Mine creature. 3 generic mana for a 3/2 or 2/3 artifact creature. It has Howling Mine Claws, so everybody draws an extra card on their draw step or upkeep. And then your opponents lose life for every card they draw. Some people are calling it like Shieldred at Home or whatever. But I think this card, like if this card is good because of the Howling Mine trigger, you just pair it with Shieldred, or you're abusing the fact that they're losing so much life from drawing cards. This kind of card I could see being like reasonable. Just the fact that it's a Howling Mine, somebody's gonna abuse it, you know. So I feel like there's more to the card than people are giving it credit for. Also, shout outs that in the same set we got Harmless Offering and Demonic Pact, which is like for me, take me back to Eldritch Moon, baby. I miss Emrakul. But for those who don't know, Demonic Pact is from, I believe, Origins. It's a 4-mana enchantment, like a Liliana enchantment, because she took the Demonic Pact. Black, 2 generic. It has a lot of text, but one of the lines is you lose the game. So I believe there's 3 or 4 modes. I want to say 3. And the modes you must choose on your upkeep every turn in order to use the enchantment, but you must choose one that you haven't chosen. So if you can remind me of what the modes are, it's like one of them is lose the game. I think one of them is like target player draws 2 cards. Maybe it's 4 modes because I remember one of them being like
Remind me of the card that you want.
Harmless Offering.
Okay.
It's gonna be like towards the bottom of the spoilers because it's in like the starter deck. I want to say.
Oh.
It's like a really annoying starter deck list that's like not part of the main set, but they're legal and standard.
Oh, that's so odd to me.
Well, while he's finding that, Harmless Offering's coming. And Harmless Offering's a 3-mana sorcery, red and 2. It's got the cute cat artwork, the cat Eldrazi, because it was from Eldritch Moon era. And you can use it to donate, effectively. Give a card away to an opponent. So what you would do is you'd use the Demonic Pact for all of its really good modes, one of which is like a Dismember effect, if I'm not mistaken.
You said this card's in the Jumpstart set?
It's not in Jumpstart, it's in the starters.
Oh,
It's
okay.
below the Jumpstart.
I didn't even go that far.
No worries.
Okay.
Harmless Offering lets you donate the card, and Demonic Pact has such good abilities that by the time you get to the last one, if you have used the other ones, you're already kind of ahead. Donating it on the last trigger to make your opponent lose the game, though, is like such BM, like super funny. It was like never good in standard. It was just the Demonic Pact that was good, but like it was cute to use the Harmless Offering. And I want to see people try it again. I'm so hyped for that. Did you find it?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. What were the modes on it?
Demonic Pact, 2 black enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose one that hasn't been chosen. This enchantment deals 4 damage to any target, and you gain 4 life.
Yes.
Target opponent discards 2 cards. You draw 2 cards.
Right.
You lose the game.
Yep. Draw 2, they mind rot, or like War Leader Helix a guy, and then lose the game. Yeah. This card was very good in Standard, and like the reason why is because like you were usually winning before the 4th trigger went off, or you had a way to get rid of it, or like blink it. Which blink might actually be reasonable for us in Standard, but Harmless Offering, just like give it away. There's a lot of enchantment kill right now, or people are mainboarding it. So like you can probably play this card right now and just kill it yourself. But giving it away, that's the best. That's what we want to see. I want to see that. I want to see that at FNM so bad.
Well, you can use what they're doing in Pioneer with giving 9 lives and then exiling it. You know what I'm talking about with the Blue Falcon?
Yes.
Yeah, you can use the Blue Falcon to like give.
What's the
Blue
Falcon? I forgot what the name of it was.
Oh gosh,
I know Julian was doing this though. I did see that. That's actually kind of hilarious. But Demonic Pact and Harmless Offering were already legal in Pioneer, so like they just gotta start doing it. Also, it's Play Booster era. Oh no, these are all in the starters. Man, I was hoping to draft it. I wanted to draft Demonic Pact Harmless Offering so bad. Sorry, guys.
It's Coveted Falcon.
Coveted Falcon. Oh, yeah.
1 blue, flying artifact bird. Whenever Coveted Falcon attacks, gain control of target permanent you own but don't control, and it's disguised for 2. When Coveted Falcon is turned face up, target opponent gains control of any number of target permanents you control. Draw a card for each one they gain control of.
Yeah, we're giving them our Demonic Pacts.
Yeah, so you just give them Demonic Pact as it's about to have the last thing. And
yeah, you mortgage your house, and then as it's going into foreclosure, you hand it over.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just funny. I think it's cute. And then I already mentioned Doubling Season earlier. They gave us so I was in one of these meetings with WotC, and they were talking about bringing back the Scarab God. They're like, we gotta bring back the Scarab God. I was like, guys, Scarab God's kind of weak. We could do better. So they gave us Consuming Aberration, and now we have Consuming Aberration in Standard again, which is just awesome. Because the last time I played that was with Phoenix, like the Mill God from Born of the Gods or whatever, and we had Consuming Aberration unironically, and Phoenix would let you tap mill your opponent equal to your guy's defense, and Consuming Aberration is as big as your opponent's graveyard is big. So you'd be like, mill your whole graveyard, or mill your whole deck, basically. The next card on the list, unironically though, shout outs to Julian. Put on Mass. It says double target creature's power this turn, and it has like flashback. The reason why I think this card is interesting is because the double strike spells aren't really getting played right now besides Manifold Mouse. However, with Leyline of Resonance, I could definitely see people going like double this guy's power, trigger, it's getting doubled and doubled off of like a turn inside out. I'm one-shotting you, you know what I mean? So it's even more kill potential for like the Leyline of Resonance decks. On top of the fact that it's just like a flashback power doubler, so it could be like a one-of that you like don't care that you manifest dreaded it or whatever. Pretty interesting. Next card, also a Julian shout out. He likes Zombify. He's been playing the Reanimator list with Valkavoth and what's the guy you're not supposed to say his name? The green creature.
Oh, Altanok?
Altanok, yeah. Say its name or whatever 3 times, and Altanok comes back. Altanok, Valkavoth, Reanimator, or whatever deck. Really cool, really fun. Rite of Passage, etc. Revive Atrexa. He was saying for Reanimate, the Rite of Passage is nice with flashback, but it sucks that you get the finality counter. So Zombify might be a good addition to these Reanimator decks to just straight up bring a guy back. In addition, Squirming Emergence decks are already kind of popping up, and so Zombify might combo with that deck already. And I think Muldrotha is like cast non-land permanent, so like the fact that you could cast your Zombify out of the graveyard with Muldrotha in the Squirming Emergence deck might be a play.
Well,
and then I already mentioned these earlier, but Phyrexian Arena.
Isn't it cast permanence, Muldrotha?
I thought it was cast.
Cast a permanent spell.
Oh, it's a permanent. My bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, neither the Rite of Passage or the other one will work, but Muldrotha will let you cast Valkavoth's Faithful, which is interesting. Anyways, Phyrexian Arena I already mentioned, and the Skylines I already mentioned. That's pretty much all the cards that I think could have impact on the format for now. Frank has a couple he wanted to get into, and then we'll talk about decks that win and lose as we wrap up the episode.
Yeah, so the first one that I had was the Bloodthirsty Conqueror. I just thought, okay, this is my scenario. And to be fair, this is my only, like, I'm cooking and I'm bad at cooking.
Frank's cooking.
I mean, I'm good at cooking in real life. I'm bad at cooking in Magic. That's why I'm
He is good at cooking in real life.
dirty net decker. So if you have Enduring Tenacity, which is the only one that's not played right now, it's the black one that says whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life.
Right.
Bloodthirsty Conqueror is 3 black, Vampire Knight, Flying Death Touch 5/5. Whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life.
Oh, the black Enduring is Sanguine Bond? Okay, so you have an
yes.
infinite. Okay.
Yeah, you have an infinite.
I didn't actually realize we had the infinite. When you mentioned playing Exquisite Blood creature, I was like, it's not a demon, but all right.
Yeah, but the thing is, too, is that, like, Enduring Tenacity, if they decide to try and kill it,
Who cares?
it doesn't matter because it comes back.
Yeah.
So-
no, you're right.
So-
if you could play a black combo deck now with this, and Bloodletter kind of slots in really nicely. So
Right.
it's Unholy Onyx. Yeah.
So, and you don't even need to attack with it. If you can do damage on turn 5.
Or gain life.
Yeah, or gain life, you win.
Yeah. So like, if you have a guy that's like a creature that's like a Soul Sister. Are there any Soul Sisters in the format? Anything that's like Prosperous Innkeeper effects? Because that would just win on the spot. If it slots in nicely, or you just have a lifelinker, you attack with the guy and you win.
So he just admitted that he thought my take was bad until he goes, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I didn't play the black Enduring card, and I'll be honest, I literally played the most Arena I've played in 2 months in like the last 2 days, and I don't get to play a lot of Arena at the store.
Which is funny because that's the opposite for me. I've like not played any Arena in a while. Like I jammed Son of Duskmourn because I couldn't be at the shop to do it,
Yeah.
and then I like just haven't played.
Yeah, no, it's just life's been rough for us right now.
Yeah,
and so,
busy and rough.
Yeah, just couldn't get to practicing standard, but now it's like finally standard time.
We're here.
We're putting it all in.
Right.
But yeah, no, I actually think that that's not a bad cook. I'm surprised that Julian isn't so hyped for it.
Well,
Maybe he didn't know that the Enduring did the thing either, because I didn't know there was a Sanguine Bond. When I saw it, I was like, great. Because Exquisite Blood, for those that don't know, is like from Avacyn Restored. That enchantment is pretty expensive for Commander because it combos with like all these other cards that are like the Sanguine Bond effect. We have like a dime a dozen.
Right.
The Exquisite Blood effect, this is the second one. So that's kind of cool.
Thank you. The next piece is Think Twice. Think Twice was a house back when it was printed, and it makes me it's feels special to me because I was playing it in standard. But I think that draw 2 on turn 2 in some cases might be better than the deduce.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think it had like there.
What do you draw 2 on turn 2?
I'm sorry. Draw a card, and then have the ability to like play this from your graveyard later.
Yeah.
Like
I like it more, especially if you're lockdowning.
Yes, I agree. Well, and because there were some, yes.
Speaking of which, man, lockdown. Where you gone, brother?
Where did you go?
I've been playing so many of my arena games my last 2 days. I'm playing out my spells. I'm like, oh man, what if he lockdowns me? Well, let's see what happens. No lockdown. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So I'm looking up these decks.
Well, and I think that Deduce felt bad when you wanted to lock down.
Yeah.
So
it
like
felt terrible. I hated it.
Yeah. So if you're gonna play a lockdown deck, you're like, wow, finally a better option for me. And Think Twice isn't legal in Pioneer.
Right.
And now it will be.
Yeah. That's
Hot.
pretty interesting.
Hot.
It could be cool, even for like otters too. Like and Manifest Dread. Anything with flashback is going to be interesting with Manifest Dread in general.
Yeah.
Or Self Mill. Yeah, that could be good.
The next one I'm interested in is Time Stop. It's 4 blue instant, end the turn, exile all spells abilities, including this spell. That player whose turn it is discards down to their maximum hand size.
Yep.
Damage, heals, and this turn, and until end of turn effects end. There was, I think it's Discontinuity,
Yeah.
right? Is the card that is currently played and a little bit in Pioneer. And I think like this could be a standard variant where like, oh, you're playing against your opponent, you pass them the turn, you end the turn, it goes back to your turn, you do some big thing to try and win the game. Or at least it buys you a turn at a minimum.
Yeah, isn't Discontinuity like 10 mana? Because like
It's a lot, but it's reduced if it's like,
on your turn.
yes.
Yeah, because like Time Stop is like straight up like end their turn,
Right.
which is kind of cracked for 6 mana. I was also going to put this card on my list, but I saw it on Frank's list. I talked about the ramp decks earlier. I could definitely see a ramp deck wanting time stop and just being like, stop. All right, back to me.
Stop.
What was I doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in the same vein, the next card you're going to mention was Omniscience, and I mentioned it earlier. Whether it's a Swarming Emergence deck or some kind of crazy ramp deck, I do think there's room for Omniscience being a potential player in the format.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, people were already doing
what was the one from Brothersmore?
Behold the Multiverse?
Yeah. Not Behold the Multiverse. One with the Multiverse.
One with the Multiverse.
Yes, agreed. I was going to make the same comparison. One with the Multiverse was already getting played. It was already kind of.
And I think it's worse, right? Because you can only do it once a turn.
Yes,
it's cheaper, but you can do it once a
lets
turn.
Find cards though, right?
Yes, I do think that.
I think that the finding cards is potential. Like that's got its play. I mean, we were even playing Portal to Phyrexia, so I think there could be an Omniscience deck, and you've got cards like Virtue of Persistence that can make it worth it. As well,
one
the actual late game.
One with the Multiverse, you can look at the top card of your library at any time, and you can cast stuff and play lands off the top at any time. But this only happens once a turn.
Right.
So there's not much to say about that. What are you saying? Squirming Emergence. I think it's just going to be a player. Next one is Sphinx of Forgotten Lore. It's 2 blue, flash, flying, whenever 3/3. Whenever this creature attacks, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to that card's mana cost.
Snapcaster at home.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought it was. So I was like, this is
honestly,
Snapcaster
everybody's flaming this card because it's not Snapcaster, but I'm in the same boat as you. I actually think this card is good.
Right.
I'm not hating on this card.
No, because it's right. Your opponent's going to do whatever, and then you're going to flash it in, and then be like, okay, my turn, swing, do the thing. I'm cooking now.
Yeah, and Dimir is already the best deck, quote unquote. This is an easy slot in for me where you just put this in your Dimir mid range deck. You're super happy to play it. It lets you play what you wanted to play already at instant speed, and then you attack, and you're like, cool, go for the throat. Whatever you want.
Right, and what I think people aren't understanding about this is that Snapcaster is once. You could do stuff quicker because it was 2 mana.
Terrible Ambush Viper,
but
doesn't get in for damage like this guy does.
Yeah, but this is a 3/3. It's evasive, and you can continue to flashback cards.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. Seems like it'll be good to me.
You're super happy.
You feel like as your opponent is
but he's you know what he reminds me of, honestly, kind of like Fairy Mastermind. When they flash that guy in on turn 2, you're pissed. You're like, damn it, man. Fairy Mastermind, of course this guy had it.
Right.
If they do that to you on turn 4, it's going to feel the same fucking way. You're like, God damn it. I'm not ready for this card right now. I don't have a removal spell. I just played my Glissa or some shit.
Yeah.
And you're cooked.
Is that rain? It looked like lightning. I was like, ooh, spooky.
I'm a little scared. Last card on your list, and we'll jump into these decks.
Yeah, Liliana, Dreadhorde General. I think that for the same reason that you were talking about with Vivian, we already were trying in Standard to play Vraska. This card's just better.
Yeah.
I mean...
And honestly, if the doubling season thing works out, her ultimate is the most insane one. It's you have one thing left.
Right. And I think the other modes are better than Liliana's modes. Better than Vraska's modes. Make a 2/2, draw a card. For those of you that don't know, Liliana Dreadhorde General. 4 black, Planeswalker. Whenever a creature you controls dies, draw a card. +1, make a 2/2 black zombie creature token. -4, each player sacrifices 2 creatures of their choice. -9, each opponent chooses a permanent they control of each permanent type and sacrifices the rest.
Yeah.
So it's basically cool. Innkeeper's Talent's loaded. Liliana, you have nothing left.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think Liliana definitely has play. There's a lot of decks that can facilitate her. Golgari ramp specifically.
Well, I was going to say, the fact that we can ramp into her now and get her out sooner is this is dumb.
Yeah, I mean, turn 2 Hauntwoods, you could have her out on turn 4, right?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so this is obviously early, so we're just going to run it by you guys. But let us know if you disagree or what your guys' thoughts are. Please comment down below. Let us know. Join the Discord.
Yeah,
argue with us. Give us some banter.
Right, and I think the big thing for me when looking at this is that we already think that the decks that will win, I don't think that will change. They can't get any worse cards. They'll just get new cards.
Yes.
It's just the stuff that might be losing could change if we get some stuff that's revealed that could be better for them.
True. And so I wrote this out pretty fast, but it was the last thing I added. Decks that win, and for context, I have decks that win, and then I have no changes, like decks that are just like not really getting anything, not really losing anything, but they're like good week one decks because of what we just saw in the format. And then I have decks that lose in a separate category. So decks that I think win, Golgari, mid-range, I think gets a lot better with Maelstrom Pulse and Elves. I think Squirmy Emergence, we've talked about it a lot already. I think that deck definitely wins. Sultai Self-Mill, any of those graveyard strategies. Even with Ghost Vacuum, even with all that going on, I think there's a decent amount of power for those decks to play around with. Ramp strategies in general, though, as we talked about, ramping into Liliana, ramping into like Muldrotha, ramping into a Progenitus, any of those kind of Hunt was just a crack card. It really is just that's like the fact. Like ramp with like the Hydra I was talking about, the Mosswood Hydra, even just that is like a crazy effect to me. Domain can just do whatever it wants as well, and it can play Sunfall or Deadly Cover Up, which is pretty good right now. Other decks that I think gain some are Reanimator decks. Zombify is pretty cool, and Coma actually slots really nicely into these 3-4 color Reanimator lists with Say Its Name, etc. and Valgavoth. I think Valgavoth is definitely an underrated card right now. The card can get kind of cracked, and obviously we didn't see any of the world champions, but if Reanimator decks or Squirming Emergence decks get any stronger, they could start popping up.
Well, and the thing too that I think that we never talked about with Zombify that I think is just so cool, and in addition is for Pioneer as well, is that Pioneer doesn't have a reanimate spell that's below 5.
Right. It's a 4-drop.
And the best 4-drop just got printed. It's Rite of the Moth,
right,
but it gives you the restriction that you need to play white.
Yes.
So this is, you can play black and any other color and still reanimate. Yeah, and I think that really that is really awesome.
And no finality counter, which is big.
Big too.
No changes, week 1 decks. I think these are just solid decks. If you don't know what to play and you're not sure what to play, these are the ones to pick. They're just good decks. Dimir Midrange, Dimir Demons. They're both phenomenal decks. Azorius Tempo, not going anywhere. Great deck. It's only honestly gotten better. Like, it's just, Azorius Tempo has been hiding around in the midst of tier 2 forever, and all it took was Oculus to really just push it there.
Boop, boop.
Gruul Prowess, just good. It's probably going to get better. And these aggro decks, they don't need agency. You know what I mean? They're just powerful. Red deck wins, etc. Prowess, whatever you want to call it. Teamer Otters, not getting a lot of love. I think this deck is a great choice, and I honestly think that it's here to stay. Mono Black or Orzhov or Rakdos, which is all basically the same deck. They are all like the Black Unholy Annex, Unstoppable Slasher decks. Orzhov literally just plays Get Lost and Legions to Ashes, like splashing and removal. The Rakdos version is so that you can play Overlord of the Boiler Burges and FOMO. It's nothing crazy, but like cards that fit in kind of nicely for this really aggressive black tempo deck. Any version of this deck is fine. They're all really good. They'll get you there. Decks that I think lose or lost, rather, anything Caretakers. I genuinely think these decks are like not good enough anymore. Caretakers' biggest niche was the fact that it just drew so many cards so efficiently for free, and it just can't keep up with all these other cards. Like for what it does, it's just too narrow compared to what everything else is doing between Enduring whatever, Overlord of the whatever, Up the Beanstalks is back, and I mean that card is banned in Modern, by the way. It's very strong. Convoke, Big L. Deck was already barely getting there. Jeskai was like a cope, I think. Sure, we saw some at the World Championships, but not a lot of them did very well. And Maelstrom Pulse is in the format now. We've got like Split Up. We've got Pyroclasm.
Legion to Ashes.
Slagstorm. I didn't mention that from Foundation. Legion to Ashes. Slagstorm is in Foundations, for those that don't know. 3 damage to all creatures or 3 damage to each player for 3 mana. It's a really good red spell. That's going to get played as well. Convoke is just dead. It's gone. Maybe we'll get something else that gets spoiled, or maybe Street Racers are going to have some really good Convoke abilities, but whatever's coming out next February. Before MagicCon too, I think. We'll see. Enchantment Aggro, I also think takes a bit of an L. either one. I'm not sure. Maybe the blue-white one is okay with flyers like spirits, like we talk about with like these fairies and Empyrean Eagle. But the Boros one that got played at Worlds, I really don't think this deck is going to be very good anymore. We'll see. It just doesn't seem like the good aggro deck to me. And then decks I'd like to see. We talked about the Time Stop deck, Frank, earlier. I would love, because like there's no good control deck right now. There just really isn't.
There isn't.
I'd love to see an Azorius, Bant rather, a Bant control deck with like Hauntwoods or whatever you want to use to ramp, like Beans, Hauntwoods, ramp action, Time Stop control deck. I would love to see that. Kind of like the Lotus Field variants that Jarvis U always plays in Pioneer, like Lotus Field, Blue White, Strict Proctor, Discontinuity U. Like that's kind of what I want to see out of Bant control.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to brew it. We'll see how it goes, but that's pretty much like the format recap I have for you guys. If you agree or disagree, let me know. If you have thoughts or anything, did I teach you something? Did Frank teach you something like he taught me earlier with his Sacrificer of the Virtue or whatever the guy's
I
name
feel like a king, just so you all know.
Bossa Nova.
I got him to say,
I agree.
yeah, that's a big win for me.
What's it called? With that being said, I'm starving. I gotta eat. I haven't eaten today. And I think Frank has to go to sleepy by. We tired.
Yeah, I gotta be in the office tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll eepy. So let's do some shout outs. First of all, shout outs to Todd for always helping us. He did the editing for the show for like the longest time, and now at his new job it's a lot harder, but he's still helping us out with like the rendering and all that stuff. Shout outs to all of our patrons as always, everybody that helps support the show, and those that join in the future as well. And everybody who's just here for the ride, we appreciate you guys. Every viewer counts, and it really does help us in the algorithm. If you guys want to like, comment, subscribe, really, really helps us out. Shout outs to Sal and MTG Chicago, letting us borrow the camera and equipment we use. We post our gameplay on their channel. So
and the thumbnails.
Yeah, he does our thumbnails.
Cooking.
And they've been cooking lately. If you like watching Magic gameplay, he has a ton of it on his channel. All of our weekly play goes to his channel. And shout outs to the Boarhead YouTube channel as well, because that's where our RCQs and our non-MTG games go if you're into like Star Wars Unlimited like Frank or Weiss Shores like myself. And then if you like, I guess, any other card game, feel free to check it out. But if you want to support us, shout out to Boar's Hat Gaming. We record here in the store. This is where I work as an owner, and it is literally my day job. So if you guys want to support, feel free to go on our website, order anything.
Like
I'm always
Foundations.
happy to Foundations coming out. Get your pre-orders in. I'm always happy to get your order out. If you need something shipped on the spot, let me know. Shoot me a message on Discord. I got you. And we ship a lot out of state now. A lot of people watch our channel, and it's been we're really grateful for all you guys from out of state as well. Shout outs to you guys. And shout outs to Nancy Steroids for the intro and outro music. Does the music too that plays when Frank is streaming. So if you want to see him play some of your decks, join the Patreon and make him play your jank.
I'll be bad, don't worry. Just for you.
Should be fun. And then I will try to get you guys some updated deck lists on our soon-to-be flex slots. Any ideas?
No, I think that's it.
That's our show. Thanks for being with us, and catch you next time.
Yep, have a good one.